Sometimes someone compliments you, and instead of feeling proud, something tightens inside your chest. You smile. You say thank you, but internally there's a strange thought. They don't really know me. Or worse, if they knew the real me, they wouldn't say that. So the praise feels misplaced, like it was meant for someone else. And the strange part is this: you might actually be good at what they're praising, yet the feeling of being a fraud lingers. Why does your brain reject something that should feel good? The answer has less to do with confidence and more to do with how your identity was quietly shaped over time. For some people, praise feels warm. For you, it feels unstable. When someone says, "You did amazing," your mind starts scanning for errors. You remember the small mistake you made, the shortcut you took, the moment you hesitated, and suddenly the compliment feels exaggerated. Your brain starts building a counterargument. They're just being nice. They don't see the full picture. If they knew how messy the process was, they wouldn't say that. Over time, this does something subtle to your identity. You begin separating who you are from what people think you are. Externally, people see competence. Internally, you see uncertainty. Externally, people see capability. Internally, you remember every moment of doubt. This gap creates a quiet psychological tension, not loud insecurity, not obvious self-hate, just a subtle feeling of being misrepresented. And because of that, praise starts to feel less like recognition and more like a misunderstanding, which leads to a strange habit. You might downplay your achievements. You redirect compliments. You say things like, "It wasn't that hard. Anyone could have done it. It was just luck." On the surface, it looks like humility, but psychologically, something else is happening. Your brain is trying to protect the stability of your identity, because accepting praise sometimes feels more dangerous than rejecting it. And that raises an important question. Why would your mind treat positive feedback like a threat? Here's the part most people never hear. Feeling fake when praise doesn't mean you're insecure, and it doesn't mean you're broken. In many cases, it means your brain learned a very specific survival strategy, one rooted in predictability. The human brain is not primarily built for happiness. It's built for consistency. Your mind constantly tries to keep your internal story about yourself stable. Psychologists call this self-concept maintenance. Your brain prefers a familiar identity, even if it's slightly negative, over an unfamiliar positive one, because unfamiliar identities are unpredictable, and unpredictable things feel risky to the brain. So when praise appears that doesn't match your internal story, your brain tries to correct the mismatch, not because it wants to hurt you, but because it wants the story to stay coherent, which means the real question isn't, why do compliments feel uncomfortable? The real question is, where did your brain learn the story that praise doesn't belong to you? To understand this, imagine your brain like a thermostat for identity. A thermostat regulates temperature. Your identity thermostat regulates how worthy or capable you believe you are. If your internal setting says, "I'm average, I'm still figuring things out, I'm not that impressive," then praise suddenly raises the temperature. Your brain notices a spike and automatically tries to lower it back to the familiar setting. This process is connected to something psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance happens when two beliefs clash. For example, belief 1, "I'm not that capable." Belief 2, "People think I did something impressive." Your brain hates holding both beliefs at once, so it resolves the tension in the fastest way possible, usually by discrediting the praise. They're just being polite. They don't see the mistakes. It wasn't actually that good. Notice what just happened. Your brain protected the old identity, even though the new evidence was positive. There's also a deeper layer. Many people who struggle with praise grew up receiving conditional validation, meaning approval was tied to performance. Good grades, being responsible, not making trouble. In those environments, praise wasn't about who you were. It was about what you produced. So your brain learned something subtle. Your worth depends on outcomes, which means every compliment carries hidden pressure. Because if people believe you're impressive, you now have to maintain that image. And maintaining an image feels risky. So rejecting the praise feels safer. But Once you see this pattern clearly, you can start interacting with it differently, not by forcing confidence, but by gently retraining how your brain processes recognition. There are a few psychological shifts that slowly change this pattern, not overnight, but gradually, and each one works by adjusting how your brain interprets praise. 1. Separate outcome from identity. When someone praises you, your brain often interprets it as a statement about your entire identity. You're amazing. You're brilliant. Your mind then panics because no identity can perfectly sustain that label. Instead, try translating praise into specific behaviors, not identity labels. For example, instead of hearing, "You're so talented," mentally reframe it as, "That strategy worked well." Why this works? Behavior-based thinking reduces cognitive dissonance. Your brain finds it easier to accept evidence about actions than global identity claims. This keeps praise grounded in reality instead of identity pressure. 2. Let praise exist without evaluation. Your brain wants to immediately judge praise. Is it accurate? Is it exaggerated? Is it deserved? But constant evaluation keeps the discomfort alive. Instead, practice something simple. Receive the compliment without analyzing it. Just say, "Thank you," and leave the statement unfinished in your mind. Why this works? Psychologically, this interrupts overactive error monitoring, a function of the brain's anterior cingulate cortex. That region constantly scans for mistakes. By not engaging the analysis loop, you weaken the habit. Over time, praise stops triggering the internal debate. 3. Track evidence, not feelings. Feelings are unreliable indicators of reality. Your brain might feel like a fraud even when the evidence says otherwise. So start collecting small external evidence, not achievements, just moments, a thank you message, a positive comment, a project that helped someone. Write them down occasionally. This works because memory is selective. Your brain naturally remembers failures more vividly than successes, a bias called negativity bias. Recording evidence slowly balances that mental data set. 4. Normalize imperfect competence. Many people reject praise because they believe competence means effortless perfection. But in reality, most skilled people feel uncertain during the process. Confusion, trial and error, moments of doubt. That's not proof of incompetence. It's actually the normal cognitive process of complex thinking. When you remember that even experts operate with uncertainty, the gap between how it felt and how it looked becomes less threatening. Competence often feels messy from the inside, but structured from the outside. So here's the mental model to keep. Think of your identity like a story your brain is constantly editing. Praise is new information entering that story. If the information feels too different, your brain tries to delete it, not because it's false, but because it's unfamiliar. Your goal isn't to force the story to change overnight. It's simply to let new sentences stay on the page a little longer. A compliment here, a small success there. Over time, those sentences quietly reshape the narrative, not dramatically, but steadily. The strange thing about feeling fake when praised is that it often happens to people who care deeply about doing things well. Your brain remembers every flaw, every imperfect moment, and that attention can make your work feel smaller than it actually is. But other people see something you don't. They see the result, the clarity after the confusion, the finished piece after the messy process. You live inside the process. They see the outcome, and both perspectives are real. So the next time someone says something kind about your work, you don't need to fully believe it. You don't need to argue with it either. Just let the sentence exist. Because sometimes the hardest thing for the brain to learn is that a new story about you might also be true. And if you let those sentences stay long enough, they slowly stop feeling like praise and start feeling like reality.